Hello. Sorry about the delay. I'm using Walmart Wi Fi. Anyways, I have been wanting to make this video for a while now, and I've just been having technical difficulties. And I don't even really want to be making this video necessarily, but it is just very difficult to collaborate with leftists. And I'm not at all the only one who shares that sentiment. It's a very common theme among non-woke or non-left people. And I don't want to say right-leaning people because just because you oppose the left, like that shouldn't automatically make you part of the right. Um, we shouldn't just lump everyone in like that because I oppose the left, but I don't like or love the right, though I do think they're a little bit more right currently or more correct on certain things at the current moment. That's just the shift. The left has been more right at times throughout history. However, because it is difficult to actually collaborate, I'm just going to make a response video because the Brothers Blue are just I hope they keep making content and I hope they keep networking. I hope they do more appearances. But we did a collaboration with them, we being myself and Steven from the BG cast. It's on my channel. You can go check it out, Crossing the Divide. And I thought it went really well. And they even say that it went really well. But then they had this response video, and I'm making a response to their response. I wish we could just have a conversation because I'm bored and I'm lonely and I'm wasting my life. And I feel like part of my life is meant to be having these deep philosophical conversations. There is a meme, you may not have seen it, but I'll just depict it for you really quick. It's easy. Imagine five Greek looking philosophers wearing togas and stuff, right? Old white dudes or old, yeah. Anyways, and the text on the meme says, "Me and the boys thinking about thinking." And I just love it because that's what I thought my life was going to be like in my 30s and beyond. I thought I was going to have a core group of guys who loved to just discuss the nature of reality, the nature of knowledge. So epistemology, ontology, um, metaphysics, all of that stuff. And it is no. So very few people care to have deep, meaningful conversations. That's the matrix that has um, hijacked their brain. The majority of the population is brainwashed, and it's not fun to say that, but that's the reality of it. I hope people wake up, and I hope we can actually have conversation. But there were some things said in this response video that I just cannot let go unaddressed. So, without further ado, or rather, with that being said, because that's the name of their podcast, I'm going to play their episode number 5, and I'll have links in the description and whatnot so you can follow up. And it's going to be at a faster than normal speed just so we can get through this without it taking 3 hours.
Hello, world, and welcome to episode 5 of the With That Being Said, Brothers Blue podcast. Tonight, we're going to keep it simple. We are on the back end, probably going to introduce the topic of abortion for us to talk about. But before that, we were lucky enough, and Steven from BGCast actually hosted us and Andrew on his live podcast. It was an awesome experience. And that's pretty much what we're going to talk about tonight is like our recap of that experience. I actually did a full-on time analysis with like serious math being done. And Kyle watched it while taking thorough notes. And so we're going to kind of mix those two things together. And so with that being said, that's Brother Kyle.
And that is Brother Cody. And I guess I want to give the content warning or disclaimer at the beginning because the majority of our conversation is going to be the analysis of our previous conversation with those guys. And I don't think it's necessarily negative, but there might be some aspects of it that come off that way. And I find that unfortunate because it's my nature, sort of. But again, like to start it, like I really want to acknowledge the sort of like graciousness of Andrew and Steven and their willingness to participate in the most recent discussion or conversation that we had. And so even though I will be talking about some criticisms, I do want to make it clear that I think this was a productive conversation.
Yes, I also think it was. And not only that, I think it will foster future communication, which is something that like I actually have been wanting to send out an email to all of the parties involved and be like, hey, further communication and little emails here and there are the things that are going to keep us or ensure future collaboration. So like you and Andrew sending those follow-up emails, I think is very, very important.
Yeah. Well,
right.
now we'll talk to you about like the long game.
Yeah.
Which is just a good strategy, like in general, like a
right.
policy. Play the long game.
Right.
Yeah. And
I feel like you were very open-minded, Cody, during that discussion with Stephen, and it really encouraged me to be enthusiastic about having a conversation with you. And so, while I might be critical in this video, and you gents were critical in your video, I hope that there is still a possibility.
so I really do again understand that like with the way Steven organizes his show that we probably won't be on until his next season, and like
right.
totally understandable.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the way he just has decided to structure his show.
So I think something that might actually be good for this little thing that we're doing is, if it's okay with you, I'm going to do like a quick synopsis of my time analysis. Because we spent 2 hours on his podcast, which is his general time. He generally lays it out in, and not only that, but to his guests, he's like, dude, if we start talking past 2 hours, that's when it's going to stop.
Yeah.
So like, I like that transparency. And my time analysis, I think something very important to understand is that Steven and his talking time is not really analyzed in my homework.
Watching it, I did notice that he spoke a lot, but like,
yeah. But also there's intro stuff, there's outro stuff, and he reads a lot. So like, I didn't count Andrew's time.
Really verbose.
Sorry, I didn't count Steven's time. I counted Andrew's time.
But I think he, and this is something that a general thing that I kind of wanted to close with, but like a theme that runs throughout is yours and his moderation throughout the entire thing, because again, it's like, I don't want to get facetious here, but I do kind of feel like me and Andrew are more volatile individuals.
Yeah, right.
I prefer the word mercurial, or, and passionate. I'm very passionate. And, Kyle and I have had some contentious conversations in moments, but I think that's because he is so often, if not entirely wrong, he is mostly wrong when he talks. And when he gets challenged, he doesn't like that. And so that's a running theme, though. Kyle is often mostly or entirely incorrect. And yeah, we'll save that for later.
Be hyperbolic than you and Steven. And
yeah.
I think that went a long way.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that is a significant amount of time in the end that I do not count towards Andrew's speaking time. And so that's the thing, is like, we get to a point where it's very obviously like the end of the conversation. And so that's where I stopped essentially recording the time of me, you, and Andrew. So basically, I just want to say it. And guys, like, I sat down and did the math and did all of it. So like, if you want to argue it, then that's fine, but do the same thing. Do the exact same research and tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong with specific numbers, because Andrew spoke for 17 minutes and 30 seconds. Kyle spoke for 12 minutes and 35 seconds. And I spoke for 10 minutes and 45 seconds. So I spoke about 7 minutes less than Andrew, about 2 minutes less than you, and less than anyone on the podcast. That's not me trying to like pander to myself. That's the numbers. The numbers say that. That's all there is to it.
I have to. Why you bring it up then?
For strict time analysis.
Okay. Yeah, because that is what you did.
Thank
you. Here's a theme that I want to introduce now that will become more apparent as this response goes further. Progressives are very structure oriented. They're very rigid in how they think things should be done, and very bureaucratic and administrative. And so this doing of a strict time analysis, if it's just for the data, just for the procedure, procedurally doing it, who fucking cares? But now if you're upset that you talked less, I can tell you why, because I don't argue your data. Don't argue your data at all. I do question your motive for mentioning it, unless, of course, you were trying to complain. I don't think you were trying to complain. But the reason there is such a disparity in talking time is because while Kyle is often wrong, that's why he doesn't talk, a whole lot. You don't know how to articulate your positions in a deep and meaningful way. You have a very vapid and shallow way of communicating things, and I'll bring up some examples as this response goes on. And so I would challenge you, gentlemen, to learn to go a layer deeper when trying to have these conversations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like you explaining the legislative process over and over and over again.
Get back on that. But because again, like I took notes in a completely different way. I timestamped all of my notes, but
Yep.
it's not a time analysis the way you did it.
Correct.
So I'm going to start on mine. The first note is like 7 minutes in because of what you said. There's a lot of like intro and all that stuff. And it's great because this is kind of like goes into what we were talking about. Is like I wants to keep it positive, and so like one of the first notes I make is about how Andrew started making content, or he cites you as a primary reason for making content. And
Right.
again, that could actually like most things be looked at both ways. Like,
Yeah.
doing it to spite you. But I think you lit a fire. I would like to think of it as more like you lighting a fire under him and inspiring him in a positive way. Not
He made a lot of videos, dude.
yeah, he has made a lot of videos. Yeah.
So I also I was not aware that my snowflake comment was so inspirational for him. This was something that happened 4 years ago, as he would even know. Recently, Andrew in a private, and this is the other thing too, is like I called him that in a direct communication. In an email recently to me or to us, Andrew called me a broke dude because I had shown vulnerability talking about my financial woes.
Yeah.
I literally was trying to show vulnerability as a way to like cross the divide, which is funny because that's his term. Right. Yeah. So anyways, I was trying to use financial woes to do that. And he made a snide comment and called me a broke dude. And like, dude, I own a home. I drive a Maserati. Do you have a home?
I borrowed money.
Do you have a car?
Borrowed money.
Okay, Cody. I'm sorry for calling you a broke dude. I was not trying to be snide or disparaging. I was, in fact, trying to develop some fraternity because, I don't need to be like brag about my vulnerability because you already know, I actually don't own a house. I'm homeless. I live in my van. You know that, or I thought you did. And so I was trying to build fraternity with you. Like, hey, we're two broke dudes. We're two like, I don't like the term lower class. And working class doesn't even work anymore. But yeah, maybe working class. We're two struggling working class dudes trying to make sense of all of this madness. I once had a boss tell me, and I didn't even like this boss, but she was right. And when someone's right, I just want to give them credit. She says to always initially assume positive intent. And so I'm sorry for calling you a broke dude. It was me trying to be like from one broke dude to another broke dude. I know the struggle, brother, but you have a Maserati and you own a home. So you're upper working class. I'm lower working class. Good on you though. Maseratis are cool.
Money from me last week. You don't borrow money from broke people. Yeah.
My checking account currently has $8,000 in it.
Yeah. Whatever. Don't dock yourself like that. Maybe not. I don't. Yeah, you probably don't care. I don't care. Whatever.
No, because when we talked and when I said it, my checking account was negative 200.
Yeah.
Because my $560 Maserati payment came out and I didn't think it was going to.
That's why I had to borrow money from you last week. I told you this. One of my
Dang.
stupid auto payments went through and like I didn't factor it into my budget. I guess I could have, but again, it's the fucking yeah.
It's capitalism. This is all fucking capitalism.
Yeah. Late stage capitalism. Sorry.
I just want to point out the deeply comedic irony of someone bragging about owning a home and driving a Maserati, then going on to complain about late stage capitalism. That's all.
Argue that any of this is like communism would just be fucking insane.
Well, yeah, we already talked and this is a fuller conversation we should have later. So let's not do the whole communism thing because again, I really, yeah, it kind of, one of the things that bothered me is that like we drilled down, and I'll get to this at the end. We drilled down on like the term communism, the term progressivism, like hard,
but not anarchism.
We didn't get into.
And so this is a great example of what I had mentioned earlier, where you gentlemen don't really know how to talk at length about things, because we didn't drill down into progressivism very hard. I would implore you, Kyle and Cody, but then also anyone who's watching, to go back and watch our stream, because I'm pretty sure I could talk more detailed about progressivism. For example, progressivism is generally seen as a secular ideology or worldview that says we should look at the collective of humanity as a core driving force for our desire to improve the world. And we should improve the world in a way where it is more inclusive, more equitable, more tolerant, and overall puts humanity first. Progressivism relies on a very large social welfare system to be successful. This requires a large amount of taxes. Blah, 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 right? So, like, even in that little minute I just talked, that was more than you guys talked about. And then also, nope, I'm going to stop there.
Anarchism like at all, and they
You want to
claim to be like anarchists, and it's like, oh, okay, I need to know what that means. So the second note that I have is about Andrew saying that his friends lost their mind, and so I thought maybe this would be one of those things that like would trigger something for you, because like, dude, at the time he was talking about how like people were losing their mind in 2016, and like in the spiritual community it was a big thing. And no, you got nothing on that? Yeah.
I thought it was 2020, not 2016. Yeah,
That's what he was saying. Maybe I have it backwards.
This is an example of Kyle not knowing what he's talking about. Cody, during his introduction, I believe, commented that he saw what was going on in 2016 and people losing their minds. And he didn't specify what it was, but one can assume that it was the election of Donald J. Trump. And then in my response to that, I had commented that in 2020, that's when I saw a lot of people lose their minds. I think a lot of people are brainwashed. I think I said it in the beginning of this video. It sucks to say, but that's the reality, unfortunately.
I think that note. Yeah, I think you were hoping that. But yeah, basically the only resignation that I would say is I think he thinks we are the people that have lost their minds, and so like I don't think he would consider us friends. But the people he's talking about are people who, yeah, like later, like listen to Fauci and science and shit like that.
Yeah. And brings me back to the friendship video that you made a long time ago. I don't have a whole lot of friends, but to be honest, I bet he doesn't either. So let's not.
Wow, that was kind of snide. I can see how my broke dude comment could have been taken incorrectly, but that was very direct. That was a very direct, snarky remark. There are a lot of people that really have unique and meaningful relationships with me. I am a difficult person, but I'm also a person that people are drawn to, and a person that doesn't have fake friendships. I have like some intense fun, just like some unique relationships. So you know what? That was mean.
Let's not get into that.
Right. And yeah, so like another thing that I thought or have been thinking about, and it gets into your next shit. So like you mentioned great people having to work with people that they don't want to work with
Yeah.
or necessarily want to work with. And so that's literally so like I think he says all relationships should be voluntary, and that's a nice idea, except for the fact that like I have relationships with several cooks and several servers because I work in a kitchen. Those are not voluntary. Like those are mandatory relationships that I have because I have a fucking job.
Yeah. And so the point I want to make is that like, and this really does go into like the philosophical stuff and like psychology of governments.
I'm pretty sure, Cody, that you're not a slave. I'm pretty sure at any point you can leave your job. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're choosing to go to this job. Yeah, it sucks that you have these relationships, but you can choose to end them at any time. And let me give you an example. Last year, I had a job where I was making okay money, but my boss was a complete cunt, and she made it an absolute miserable situation for me. So I left. It sucks because I went from making like I wasn't struggling. Like, I mean, yeah, I left and I knew it was going to be an issue, but that's how miserable I was that I had to get out. And so, my friend, if you're miserable, I encourage you to leave. But if you're just a little bit inconvenienced, then quit being a baby.
That he was talking about earlier.
Weird stuff. Yeah.
So basically, coercive relationships are an integral piece of the social contract.
This is not a clickbait title. Coercive relationships are an integral piece of the social contract. Yeah, he said it. He said it. He believes in coercion.
And this is actually why I want to drill down with them on anarchism and psychology of governments, because the idea behind a government is essentially that like the group, the collective, knows what's better for society than the individual. And so that's the entire idea behind the social contract, which again is like a philosophical concept upon which the justification for all government exists. It's like, why do we have governments? Why is there a state? Because of the social contract. We forego certain freedoms to ensure the security of everyone. This is the social contract. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I want to give Kyle credit and say that he's not entirely incorrect here. He's actually very correct. What he is failing to convey and communicate, and I don't think it's him being dishonest, because he admits that he doesn't know about anarchism. And let me just tell you, like, Google exists. Start with Google, get a base idea, and then start looking at the authors and philosophers who have been working on this stateless society project. For example, I've got a book right here, The Anatomy of the State from Murray Rothbard. Start reading the people who came before you, because it is your duty to build upon what they have already established. And so the social contract is a nebulous, meaning not rigidly defined. But remember, progressives are rigid. They're very rigid. They're very procedural. They're very bureaucratic, right? And so that's why they love the government. That's why they think we need the government. So the social contract, yes, a lot of philosophers say this concept of the collective knowing better is the justification for the government. But there are other philosophers who say, in fact, no, while the collective may be right, it does not give them authority over individuals. And so this is where you're partially right, Kyle, but then partially wrong. And so that is what people like myself, and there's so many thought leaders who are just doing so much more work than I am, but I just want to contribute in my own little way, is that we're expanding the social contract to say, yes, the collective can be right at times. And yes, there is collective wisdom. And yes, we should think about the collective, but doing so as an individual. The collective does not have the authority over the individual.
Fine. So you say, and that's the thing is, like, do you want to go through your notes now?
Well, no, that I've already hit a couple things that are at the end of them, so we don't need to go over those again. Yeah, no, basically,
So, hold on.
no,
Let me
you're talking about the team of rivals. So yeah, sorry.
one of your notes says that voting point seems tangential, and I'm going to tell you why it's not, because I brought up the voting point.
Exactly.
I literally started with the question, isn't voting antithetical to anarchism?
Yeah.
You cannot seem to shut the fuck up about wanting to talk about anarchism. And so voting is not tangential. Sorry.
Well, it seemed tangential. Not
The question afterwards, maybe.
it seemed weirdly or mistargeted. There we go. Because you were asking Andrew about voting, and I'm sorry, pretty sure we all know that he doesn't vote.
Oh, I don't know if he does or not. That's why I asked the question. And so
because he doesn't vote.
I didn't really research it, but I'm pretty sure the answer to my question is that even in states with primary mail-in voting, they have polls on election day.
They have usually the whole week prior. There are polling stations here. Like I can go to one tomorrow.
Well, I'm going to go on November 5th or whatever. I'm going on voting day. So. Yeah.
Okay. So going back to progressives being bureaucratic and procedural, during that conversation, Cody had asked me a procedural, I don't want to say irrelevant, but like it was irrelevant because we're not talking about like things that can be easily Googled. He's right. There's polls, but then there's also mail-in voting, and homeless people, they encourage us to vote. And I just want to touch on this. Anarchism. Here's the thing that like, which is why it would be so fun to continue having these conversations, because there are so many different types of anarchism. And literally there are diametrically opposed versions like anarcho-communism and anarcho-capitalism. So even within anarchism, there's a vast schism of differences and interpretations. And so that goes back to our earlier point where it's like, it is our duty to continue to build on this foundation. And the foundation is that no one has authority over you. You have authority over no one else. We need to learn to cooperate and collaborate and work together as sovereign individual agents. And I'll just say it actually. Some anarchists believe in voting, some don't. I did actually vote for Donald Trump in this last election. I don't think he's a savior at all. It is very much a lesser of two evils, and I wouldn't tell anyone else to do well. Like I would tell someone to follow their heart, right? I think uh, Donald Trump being in office slows down the globalists just a little bit, and I'm just trying to buy as much time as I can so I can prepare. But the Brothers Blue don't think that's an issue, and they acknowledge it, and so it's yeah. But that's why I voted for Donald Trump.
So that was my question: is in a state that is primarily mail-in voting, how does someone with questionable housing participate in the voting process? Again, it's not tangential. It's not weird that I asked Andrew that question. I just don't think anyone understood the context or like what I was actually asking.
And just because I literally am only putting my personal projection onto it by saying that, like, I think it's weird that you would ask Andrew that because, again, and I'm not trying to be like mean or vindictive here, but I don't think he votes.
If he doesn't vote, then he's being true to being an anarchist, because even Steve, dude, I asked that question and Steven said yes, and that was the end of the conversation. Yeah. I said, is voting antithetical to anarchism? And Steven said yes.
Yeah. And so, like, literally, he also says anarchism is superior, and I just want that's why
right, you have that question. How's it superior?
Yeah, I'm focusing on like some very specific verbiage.
Right. And so your questions about anarchism that follow, I feel like are better suited for that conversation.
Yeah. The one thing I do want to point out about our conversation, because that's what we're talking about, is like he literally says that like social reform is something we can all agree on. And I am really curious how anarchism can achieve social reform.
I love that question for Andrew and for fucking Steven, not for me.
So you'll disagree with me on this, but I'll answer that question. It's easy. And this is something that most anarchists agree on. Not all of them, but most of them. Like I can say this. Most anarchists believe that the state in all of its facets is one of the primary, in fact, the largest driver of social issues in our world, and that it has been throughout history. When you adopt that mindset, and when you see the reality, the truth of it, that governments have been the primary source of malevolence throughout human history, at least throughout civilized human history. We can't really go back to the Neanderthals too much, but anyways. So when you start there and then you think, okay, well, we get rid of the thing that's creating most of the social issues, and then what social issues do we have left? And from there, because anarchism is decentralized, there are fewer barriers to people to make a difference, in addition to like you just all kinds of things. But that's the starting point.
For me.
Sorry. Exactly. You're right. You're right. Yeah. So I'll stop with the anarchism stuff.
Yeah, and then let's just skip the World Economic Forum and non-government organizations thing. Let's not do that right now. That can be a part of the capitalism conversation, right? Sorry.
The World Economic Forum and non-governmental organizations are not nefarious institutions.
Okay, let's expand on that in a different conversation.
I will.
I agree. You're not wrong. I'm not arguing with you. Yeah. But
I vehemently disagree with you, but I'm trying to be less volatile, as you say. Klaus Schwab's father, Eugene Schwab, was a Nazi. Just saying. But like, I mean, I don't even know where to start. Like, that's the thing. Like, we can agree to disagree on that, I guess. But oof.
I actually really do like your next point is like, dude, hardcore nationalism is something that just pops up everywhere all the time.
Yeah, so the examples I bring up in my notes are Hungary, Venezuela, Brazil, and
Albania.
Oh god, they literally had a civil war. Like the
Ethnic white people.
ethnic. They're not Serbs, but they are. It's this. Albania.
They're white. So.
Albania is closer to Serbia than like Arizona is to Texas. Like,
don't Serbia and Albania share a border?
They might. No,
they do.
I don't think they do. Albania is small.
Okay, you might be right.
Yeah. So, anyways,
you're probably right.
Getting back to the nationalism thing, is it just kind of bothers me because like I didn't push back, like we didn't push back on this at all. And again, obviously, hardcore nationalism exists in place other than the United States and Israel.
Right.
Just his excuse was, or like I don't know, justification was that like all of the countries that I might have mentioned, Hungary or whatnot, are falling in line with the global economic order, the WEF, and all that. And it's just like, okay, you can do that, and so do you think do you think we're not, and Israel is not part of that?
Yeah, these are things that like it's so funny because and again, Steven, if you're watching, thank you for having us, and I would love to be on there again.
I hate
shit. Oh yeah, binary thinking. Steven talks about how very, very few things are binary, and they think of a lot of things in binary.
Yeah.
Specifically gender, which I didn't get to talk about this time in your notes. But anyways, nationalism and whatever else thing you were talking about are not binary. They can exist at the same time.
Yeah. And so
I don't think you have an informed enough opinion on my view of gender. I think you just assume that I'm maybe anti-trans. I don't know. I could be wrong. But that just seemed like I think, and that's why it would be so nice to have a broader conversation, because I get the feeling that you have a lot of misconceptions about my worldview. And I feel like those misconceptions are driving the divide between us. But if you don't take anything else away from this video, I really, really want to hammer this point home. This is the meta point. This is the major point. You are correct. 100% correct. Nationalism.
So it is in my.
And I think you said whatever else is opposite of it. We can call it collectivism or globalism. So nationalism and globalism can coexist at the same time. You are right there, brother. Right there. That's the fucking key. That is the culture war that is dividing the population. That is the Hegelian dialectic being played out in real time against us. The Hegelian dialectic in the conspiracy theory world is this idea. So Hegel, a philosopher, created this, concept. You have a thesis and an antithesis, so an idea and the opposite of that idea. And as you sort of argue these concepts and discuss these concepts, as you discuss the tension between them, the dialectical tension, you create a greater knowledge, a synthesis of the initial thought experiment, right? But that tension can be weaponized against people. So we have a hugely nationalistic MAGA movement and a very collectivist, globalist supporting woke movement. And the divide that they have sowed between the two of them has enabled more tyranny, oppression, authoritarianism. It has enabled them, see, this is where you disagree though, to make progress on their plans to create a consolidated new world global order. even though they say it in their own, like they say it, they want to create a global new world order. So you're right, but you're not seeing the bigger picture. And I hope we can like maybe cut through it.
I know it's
Oh,
like, yeah,
being a part of the global capital order and nationalism are not mutually exclusive.
no. But this does actually what this does. Yes, good job. So this does. It's a good segue because, and I can't find it in my note. Oh yeah, science, the institution.
It's the next one. It's right there. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Duh. You got anything to say about that? Because
Well, no, I briefly mentioned it earlier because you said it, but yeah, like overall, I don't think Fauci is the devil. I think if there are people to be worried about, it's like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and the Walton family. But that's my theory.
Again, I agree with you, Cody. We should be worrying about Elon Musk and Bill Gates and George Soros and the Walton family. I guess the Soros family, right? And the Pelosi's and the McCains. And no, I agree with you, brother. We agree.
Yeah, agree entirely. Because again, like if you know anything about the AIDS crisis, you know that Fauci was like the spearhead of that, and he was like the spearhead of COVID. And it's like, dude, it has experience. Like, yeah,
Right.
Why are you trying to pull it?
It is so ironic, like deeply comedically. I think I've said that already once, but like if you know anything about the AIDS crisis, Kyle, if you knew anything about the AIDS crisis, you would know that Fauci did a horrible job, and he is very hated for how he handled the AIDS crisis. And that's not the only scandal he has been associated with. But you have been so brainwashed to not see the truth that's right in front of you, and it's really sad. And I hope you can wake up someday. Um, I would suggest you research AZT and the poisoning of people, and then like the costs, like and just all the things, and then also like where AIDS came from. Oh, that's you're not ready for that one.
Politicize the science. And yeah, I am the science. Like, yeah, that is a hypercharged statement, but again, like, yeah.
So smart cities is definitely something I almost started researching them today. And you brought it to my attention because I didn't think about it, but somehow I subconsciously knew that smart cities were a thing that actually exists overseas. I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
So-
one way, I think it's like, so yeah, exactly. There's one in the Emirates.
See, I think the idea of smart cities and freedom zones that Andrew has is not what an actual smart city is, and a freedom zone is entirely hypothetical. So,
Oh, so there aren't any free. I don't. You mentioned it, and I feel bad that I didn't research it. It says it's going to end in 10 minutes. So
yeah, that's fine.
10 minutes. That's good.
We're almost done.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel bad that I didn't research it, but because like I know what cop cities are, I know what smart cities are. Freedom zones are something I'm novel to.
Hypothetical.
Oh, okay.
Has the balkanization of the United States happened?
Well, yeah, I get it. So
I said those are two hypothetical things that are fun ideas that should be talked about and researched.
can you your simplified definition of a freedom zone?
The opposite of a smart city.
Okay. That's,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's confusing.
I'm pretty sure that's what Andrew would say, but again, I don't know. And so I hate to say this, but I would imagine some sort of esoteric explanation of a place that, again, does not exist.
Oh, so it's like a good thing. It's the good thing that is the opposite, but doesn't really exist.
Oh, Andrew's definitely on board of thinking smart cities are the bad places like San Francisco and Seattle, and yeah. So also, what's really funny, because I know a lot about like local economic, like dude, California is so ready to be its own nation, like 10 times before any other region. Even if a region was like, hey, New York State, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, we're going to become this. Sorry, you don't have half of what California has. The agricultural output, and then everything else is just crazy. Sorry. Alaska should be its own country and has really weird crime rates.
You just talked about how California could be its own country.
Yeah.
That's literally the only point I'm trying to make about Alaska, and it would be as successful, if not more, than California if it seceded.
Alaska,
like, California is not anomalous in this situation.
Alaska has really weird violent crime rates.
Yeah, because of their male population. Yeah.
So
That was kind of misandrist. It's a little bit more complicated than because of their male population. Um, but that's just potentially some self-loathing coming out.
Again, I think the comparison is that, well, first of all, those two alone,
People act like California is like hell.
California would be a much better nation state than Alaska would be for that reason alone. Not, dude, I don't think, not just, sorry, Silicon Valley, Hollywood, America's breadbasket.
Oh, the economy? Like, what are you saying? You said one reason why California would be a better nation state than Alaska. The economy, no. Just
Hold on.
the natural resources in Alaska are fucking ridiculously untapped.
We need to have this conversation off camera.
Yeah. Well, in just more detail. Like, I don't, care about not.
Dude, that's the thing. I think something like 40% of the agricultural output in the United States comes from California.
Okay.
Agricultural output.
I am almost certain that the majority of coal, natural gas, like all gas and like all that stuff comes from Alaska. Like, yeah, California is number one in something. Alaska is number one in like energy production, I would say probably.
So probably Texas.
It's up and we should have this conversation again because we're probably going to need to end it soon.
So it's probably Texas for energy. And then the other thing, that's what I'm saying, is like, you realize Hollywood is a fucking billion-dollar industry, and then Silicon Valley also is in California. Dude, you realize Silicon Valley is and that thing is like, energy is probably right there with agriculture, but I would bet that Silicon Valley and the tech industry is bigger than energy.
Interesting to have this conversation at a later time, so please.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. That's my thing, is you have weird notes after that, so like one of them just says good vibes. What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah, exactly. No, I don't. Yeah, really, the only other like note that I think maybe we could expand on, because again, we're pressing on, is the yeah, and it does, like, goes into the good vibes thing, is like we start to like agree on a lot of things, and the one of the biggest agreements that we have is that like achieving alternative routes for medicine through legislation.
Yeah,
acknowledging that that is what has to happen.
It's a great idea, and not only, yes, you're right, and dude, I hate to say this, but that's how you take down big pharma.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
I just want to throw out there that yes, I do support efforts to change legislation. I also support efforts to disregard legislation. Fuck the laws, especially the immoral laws, right? That's my personal anarchist interpretation, and I think even Martin Luther King has said, I think this is a quote by him: one has a moral duty to object to unjust laws. I'm pretty sure he said something to that effect. So yes, we should work to change the law so people don't have to like risk going to jail. But then also we should have more people who are willing to risk going to jail. I know that's easy for me to say. I'm a homeless guy with no family. If I had a family, I hope it would not change the decisions that I make, because virtue, like consistent virtue, that's what I strive for.
It's not holistic medicine, it's alternative medicine.
Yeah. So your last note, I actually totally agree with you. Andrew says that your logic is flawed, and then he lets Stephen take it, and Stephen does not explain how your logic is flawed. Yeah. It is never addressed. But that's the thing too, is like you guys have a 10-minute conversation about gender, and I didn't get to say a word.
Yeah. Another point that I did, like, grand overarching point, is that so much was unsaid.
So Kyle had made a comment, something to the effect of, if you make progress, isn't that good? And Stephen went off on a little side quest. He did, but essentially Stephen talked about the fact that progress is subjective. So what one person thinks is progress, another person might think is a retrograde. And so when there's not a universal agreement on what progress is, it's difficult to say who's right. I mean, nobody's right, because we're all subjective. But that's what Stephen was talking about, is that nobody has the absolute divine definition of progress, right? And that's why individualism is superior in terms of granting people sovereignty and agency and everything, right? And then I jumped in and said, okay, yeah, I agree. The subjective nature of progress is one issue, but then another issue is the how you accomplish your objective. And so if you have a problem like your country, half your country is starving, that's a problem. How can you make progress on that problem? Well, if you kill half of your country, oh, you have less of a starvation problem. But how you accomplished it was at a major loss of human capital. And so while making progress is a good goal we should have, we should afford people sort of the flexibility to define progress and to contribute in their own individual and unique way. And then the whole example of killing half your population, that's not hyperbole, because that's what communist countries have done in the past. Which is why I'm very anti-communist, but like that's the whole thing. Because communism, fascism, authoritarianism, it's all the same. Feudalism, it's all the same.
Like,
Yes. Yep. Totally. With us getting close to the end, you just want to end it?
no, let's talk about abortion.
Oh yeah.
I have one point I wanted to make about abortion.
Well, but do we have time? Sorry.
Oh no, we have a few. I'm looking at the time, and yeah, we got.
All right.
So if you have something you want to say about abortion, go ahead, and then I will.
No, I thought you were going to say something. So go ahead.
Nothing.
I have a billion things that I want to say about abortion.
Okay. Okay. So all I will say is that, like, hopefully, obviously, in the future, abortion will be a topic that we
Talk about it again.
have an echo chamber about.
Yeah.
And the really only point I want to make is that, like, again, I talked about getting my ballot and voting on things. I recently voted on Prop 139 in Arizona to grant access to abortion in our state.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome.
That's it.
No, and you've talked about how you are politically engaged to vote on the things that actually impact your community, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called citizen participation.
Civic duty.
Civic duty. Yeah, exactly. Vote.
All right. Well, people go on vote for Kamala. And with that being said,
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, that was, yeah. I think my position on, nope, I'm not going to get into my position on abortion. I'm tired. I'm going to end it there. Hopefully we can continue to make progress on these conversations, because the society needs it, because we're divided. No doubt about it.